The morning sun shone bright over Haven's Rest colony. Children played in the streets while their parents worked. Jake Morrison stood on his porch, watching his 8-year-old daughter Katie run around with her friends. Some were human kids. Others were from different alien species that lived on the colony. Jake was the captain of the Human Defense Force on Haven's Rest. His wife Lisa ran the medical center. They had moved here 5 years ago when the colony was just starting. Back then, it was mostly humans. Now it was home to many different species from across the galaxy. The colony sat on a green world with 2 moons. It was perfect for farming and had good water. More importantly, it was a meeting place for trade between different alien governments. The Galactic Trade Confederation had picked Haven's Rest as a neutral ground where all species could meet safely. Jake liked it here. His daughter was growing up with friends from different worlds. She could speak 3 alien languages already. This was what peace looked like, he thought. But peace was about to be tested. A large ship appeared in the sky that afternoon. It was black and covered in sharp metal spikes. Jake knew that design. It was a Vorthic ship. The Vorthic were a species of tall, scaly reptiles who loved war and conquest. They had never visited Haven's Rest before Doc Jake got a message on his communication device. The Vorthic wanted to meet with the colony leaders. They said they were here for trade talks. Jake did not trust them, but the colony's rules said all species could request meetings. 2 hours later, Jake sat in the colony's main meeting hall. Beside him sat Nathan Cross, the human diplomat who handled trade deals. Across the table were 3 Vorthic warriors in dark armor. Their leader was Commander Jektar, a massive reptile with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. "We come to discuss trade," Jektar said in his rough voice. "The Vorthic Empire needs food and metals. Your colony has both." Nathan leaned forward. "We're always happy to trade. What do you offer in return?" "Protection," Jektar said with a cold smile. "We protect you from pirates and other threats. In return, you give us what we need." Jake felt his jaw tighten. This was not a trade offer. This was a threat disguised as business. "We already have protection," Jake said calmly. "A Confederation fleet patrols this system." Jektar laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "The Confederation? They are weak. They run from real fights. The Vorthic do not run." Nathan tried to keep things calm. "Let's talk about specific goods and quantities. What amounts of food and metal do you need?" "All of it," Jektar said simply. "Your colony will provide for Vorthic needs first. Other trade comes second." "That's not possible," Nathan replied. "We have contracts with dozens of other species. We can't break those deals." Jektar's eyes narrowed. "You will break them. Or we will break them for you." Jake stood up. "I think this meeting is over. You're not here to trade. You're here to threaten us." "Sit down, human," Jektar hissed. "You are a lesser species. You do not give orders to the Vorthic." The other 2 Vorthic warriors moved their hands to their weapons. Jake did not move. He had faced down pirates and raiders before. He would not be scared by overgrown lizards. "Lesser species?" Jake said with a cold smile. "That's funny. Last I heard, the Vorthic got their tails kicked by the Craxi Federation 3 years ago." Jektar rose to his full height, nearly 7 feet tall. "You dare insult the Vorthic Empire?" "I'm stating facts," Jake replied. "You lost 12 worlds to the Craxi. That's not exactly a sign of strength." Nathan put a hand on Jake's arm. "Let's all calm down. We can work something out." But Jektar was angry now. "Your colony is weak. You let your young ones play with alien children. You let your females work alongside males. You show weakness everywhere." "We call it civilization," Jake said. "You might want to try it sometime." "Civilization?" Jektar laughed again. "You humans think you are so advanced. But you are soft. You care too much about protecting your weak ones. Your children, your old ones, your sick ones. This makes you weak in war. Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. The Vorthic commander had just mentioned human children. That was a line that should not be crossed. Our children are not part of any discussion, Jake said quietly. Everything is part of discussion, Shektar replied. When we take control of this colony, we will decide what happens to everyone, including the small humans. Nathan stood up quickly. Commander, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No one is taking control of anything. But Jake was looking directly at Shektar now. The cold feeling in his chest was spreading. Commander, I'm going to say this once and only once. You can take our resources if you're strong enough. You can challenge our territory if you want to fight. You can even declare war on our fleets if you think you can win. But if you so much as threaten a human child, you won't survive the repercussions. Shektar stared at Jake for a long moment. Then he began to laugh. The other two Vorthic joined in. It was a harsh, mocking sound that filled the room. You threaten me, human? Shektar said between laughs. You think your tiny colony can fight the Vorthic Empire? I'm not threatening you, Jake said calmly. I'm warning you. There's a difference. The laughter stopped. Shektar leaned across the table. And what makes you think you can warn me? Jake did not blink. Because touching a human child isn't just attacking our colony. It's attacking every human in the galaxy. And we don't forgive that. Ever. Shektar studied Jake's face. He saw no fear there, no doubt, just cold certainty. For a moment, the Vorthic commander felt something he had not felt in years. Unease dot, then the moment passed. Shektar straightened up and smiled his cold smile again. We will consider your words, human. But do not mistake mercy for weakness. The Vorthic always get what they want. The three aliens turned and walked out of the meeting hall. Jake watched them go, still feeling that cold certainty in his chest. Nathan looked worried. Jake, maybe we should call for backup. Get some Confederation ships here. Jake shook his head. They won't come back right away. But they will come back. And when they do, we need to be ready. Outside, Jake could hear children laughing as they played. Katie's voice was among them, bright and happy. She had no idea that her world had just become a much more dangerous place. Jake made a decision. He would send a message to the Human Fleet Command. Not a request for help, but a warning. The Vorthic had shown interest in human children. That was information every human military commander needed to know. Because Jake Morrison had not been bluffing. If the Vorthic touched a human child, they would learn what human repercussions really meant, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks passed after the Vorthic visit. Life on Haven's Rest went back to normal, but Jake Morrison kept his guards on high alert. He had sent messages to Human Fleet Command about the Vorthic threats. The replies were all the same. Help was too far away if trouble started. Jake was not surprised. Haven's Rest was on the edge of human space. The nearest human battle fleet was 6 days away at best. If the Vorthic came back with warships, the colony would have to defend itself. Katie Morrison did not know about any of this. She went to school every morning with her friends. Her teacher was Amy Peterson, a young woman who had come to Haven's Rest to teach children from different species. Amy loved her job. She said the kids gave her hope for the future. On Tuesday morning, Katie was in class learning about different star systems. Amy was showing them pictures of beautiful worlds with strange animals and plants. The children were excited, asking questions about each new place. That was when the attack began. The first sign of trouble was a low rumble in the sky. Amy looked out the window and saw dark shapes moving through the clouds. She recognized them. Immediately from the safety briefings Jake Morrison had given to all colony staff, Vorthic warships. "Children, we need to go to the safe room right now," Amy said calmly. She had practiced this drill many times. The school had a reinforced basement where kids could hide during emergencies. But as Amy led her 12 students toward the basement stairs, explosions began outside. The Vorthek were not just threatening this time. They were attacking. The school building shook as energy beams hit the colony's defense towers. Amy could hear Jake Morrison's voice on the emergency speakers, telling all civilians to take shelter. But his voice was cut off as the communication center was destroyed. Amy got the children into the basement safe room. It was a small space with thick walls and its own air supply. The kids were scared, but trying to be brave. Katie Morrison held the hand of a small alien child who was crying. "It's okay," Katie whispered. "My dad will stop the bad guys." Amy hoped. Katie was right. But the explosions outside were getting closer. Above ground, Jake Morrison was fighting a losing battle. The Vorthik had brought 20 warships and hundreds of ground soldiers. His defense force had only 50 human soldiers and some automated defense guns. They were doing their best, but they were badly outnumbered. Jake's wife Lisa was at the medical center, preparing to treat wounded. She could see Vorthik soldiers moving through the streets, going from building to building. They were looking for something specific. The attack was not random. The Vorthik had studied the colony layout. They knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. This was not just conquest. This was a message. Back at the school, Amy heard heavy footsteps on the floor above. The Vorthik had found them. She told the children to be very quiet and stay hidden behind the supply boxes. Maybe the soldiers would not find the basement entrance. But Vorthek technology was good at finding hidden things. Sub-Commander Velkin led his squad directly to the basement door. His scanner had detected the life signs below. The metal door exploded inward. Velkin and 4 other Vorthik soldiers entered the safe room with weapons ready. Amy stepped in front of the children, her arms spread wide. "Please," she said. "They're just children. They can't hurt you." Velkin looked at the small humans and aliens cowering behind their teacher. In Vorthik culture, the young were expected to fight or die. These soft creatures hiding behind an adult female disgusted him. "Human young," he said in broken English. "Perfect." Amy did not understand what he meant. Perfect for what? Velkin smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Perfect for breaking human spirit. The Vorthik commander had studied human psychology during the 3 weeks since their first visit. Humans had a weakness for their young that could be exploited. If the Vorthik took human children as hostages, the adults would surrender rather than risk harm to their offspring. "You cannot take them," Amy said firmly. "I won't let you." Velkin raised his weapon. "You will not stop us, human female." Katie Morrison stepped out from behind Amy. At 8 years old, she was small even for a human child. But she looked up at the giant reptile warrior without fear. "My daddy warned you," she said in a clear voice. "He said not to touch human children. You should have listened." Velkin was amazed by the child's courage. Most adult species showed fear when facing Vorthik warriors. This small human seemed completely unafraid. "Your daddy is not here, little human," Velkin said. "He will come," Katie replied. "All the humans will come. They always protect their children." Velkin laughed. "Then they will watch their children suffer." Amy tried to grab Katie and pull her back, but 2 Vorthik soldiers seized the teacher. Velkin pointed at 6 of the children, including Katie. "Take these ones to the ship," he ordered. "Leave the others. When the humans find them, they will know we have their young." The Vorthik soldiers began separating the children. Katie held tight to her friend Bobby, a 7-year-old boy who lived next door to her family. The alien children were left behind, crying for their human friends. Amy fought against the soldiers holding her. "You can't do this. They're innocent." "Innocence is weakness," Velkin replied. "We will teach the humans this lesson." As the Vorthic soldiers carried the 6 human children toward the surface, Amy made a desperate choice. She broke free from her captors and threw herself at Velkan, trying to stop him from taking the kids. Velkan's weapon fired. Amy Peterson fell to the ground, but she had bought the children a few precious seconds. Katie grabbed Bobby's hand and tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The last thing Amy saw before darkness took her was Katie Morrison's face. The little girl was not crying. She was angry. "You hurt my teacher," Katie said to Velkin. "Now you're really in trouble." Velkin found the child's defiance amusing. Soon she would learn what it meant to cross the Vorthic Empire. The soldiers carried the 6 children up to the surface and loaded them into a transport ship. Katie looked out the window as they lifted off, seeing her colony burning below. But she was not afraid. She remembered her father's words to the Vorthak commander 3 weeks ago. Somewhere in the burning colony, Lisa Morrison saw the Vorthic transport ship rising into the sky. She knew immediately what it meant. The aliens had taken human children. Lisa ran to the emergency communication array that Jake had hidden in the medical center. It was their backup system, designed to work even if the main communication center was destroyed. With shaking hands, she activated the quantum transmitter and began broadcasting on the emergency frequency reserved for the highest priority threats. "This is Dr. Lisa Morrison at Haven's Rest Colony," she said into the transmitter. "The Vorthic have attacked our settlement and taken human children as hostages. 6 children are confirmed captured, including my daughter Katie Morrison. Request immediate assistance from any human forces in range." The message raced through quantum space faster than light, reaching human settlements and ships across dozens of star systems. Each station that received it immediately retransmitted the signal, spreading the news like wildfire. On the patrol ship UHS Defender, Colonel Ryan Parker received the transmission while on routine patrol near the Sigma Centauri system. He read the message twice to make sure he understood it correctly. The Vorthic had taken human children. Parker's hands were steady as he activated his ship's most powerful transmitter and began broadcasting on every human military frequency simultaneously. All human vessels, all human commands, all human forces. Priority Alpha emergency. Hostile aliens have captured human children at Haven's Rest Colony. Coordinates attached. This is not a drill. Repeat, human children are in enemy hands. The message reached Admiral Karen Stevens aboard the battleship UHS Retribution while she was conducting fleet exercises. She read Parker's transmission and felt something cold settle in her stomach. Navigation. Plot a course for Haven's Rest Colony, maximum speed, she ordered. "Admiral, that's outside our patrol sector," her navigation officer replied. Stevens looked at him with eyes like ice. "Son, do you understand what Priority Alpha means?" The young officer swallowed hard. "Yes, ma'am. Threat to human civilians." "Not just any civilians," Stevens said quietly. "Human children. Set course immediately and signal the fleet to follow." Across human space, the response was the same. Cargo ships changed course and armed themselves with whatever weapons they could find. Military vessels abandoned their assigned missions and raced toward Haven's Rest. Even human settlers on distant worlds began preparing to send help. The Vorthic had made their critical mistake. They thought taking human children would make the humans weak and afraid. Instead, they had awakened something that had been sleeping in the depths of human nature. Something that would make the galaxy tremble. The children were in the hands of their enemies now, but help was coming. More help than the Vorthic could possibly imagine. Katie Morrison sat in the dark cargo hold of the Vorthic ship, holding Bobby's hand. She was not afraid. Her daddy had warned them. Now they would learn what human warnings really meant. The message about the captured children spread through human space like fire through dry grass. Within 6 hours, every human settlement, ship, and military base knew what had happened at Haven's Rest Colony. The response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Karen Stevens stood on the bridge of the UHS Retribution, watching her tactical display fill with new contacts. Ships were arriving at Haven's Rest from every direction. Military vessels, cargo haulers, passenger liners, even small personal ships flown by individual humans who had dropped everything to join the rescue mission. Admiral, we now have 247 vessels in the system, her communications officer reported. More are arriving every hour. Stevens nodded grimly. In her 30 years of military service, she had never seen humans unite like this. Not during the Centauri Wars, not during the pirate raids, not even when Earth itself was threatened by the asteroid storm, but threatened human children, and every human in the galaxy became a soldier. Any word from the Vorthic command ship? Stevens asked. No response to our demands, Admiral. They're maintaining position near the outer moon. Stevens studied the display. The Vorthic fleet consisted of 20 warships surrounding one massive command vessel. It was a strong force, but they were now facing almost 300 human ships. The numbers should have been overwhelming, but Stevens knew better than to underestimate the Vorthic. Their ships were newer and more heavily armed than most human vessels. Many of the human ships were civilian craft with hastily mounted weapons. In a straight fight, it would be costly. That was fine with Stevens. She was willing to pay any cost to get those children back. On the surface of Haven's Rest, Jake Morrison limped through the ruins of his colony. His left leg was badly injured from the initial attack, but he refused to be evacuated. This was his home, and his daughter was somewhere above in enemy hands. Lisa. Morrison found him near the school where Katie had been taken. Amy Peterson's body had been recovered from the basement. The young teacher had died trying to protect her students. The fleet's assembled, Lisa told her husband. Karen Stevens is in command. She's demanding the children's return. Jake looked up at the sky, where distant lights marked the positions of hundreds of ships. And if the Vorthic refuse? Then they learn what human justice looks like, Lisa replied. Jake smiled grimly. He had sent warnings to Fleet Command about the Vorthic threat weeks ago. Those warnings had included detailed intelligence about Vorthic ship designs, weapons, and tactics. Information that Admiral Stevens would need for what was coming. Aboard the Vorthic command ship, Commander Jektar studied his scanner readings with growing unease. When he had taken the human children, he expected a small rescue force to arrive, maybe a dozen ships demanding negotiation. Instead, he faced the largest human fleet ever assembled. Ships were still arriving, adding to the massive formation surrounding his position. Commander, we are receiving another transmission from the human admiral, his communications officer reported. Play it, Jektar ordered. Admiral Stevens' voice filled the command bridge. This is Admiral Karen Stevens of the Human Defense Force. You are holding 6 human children aboard your vessel. You will return them immediately, unharmed or face the consequences. You have 1 hour to comply. Jektar laughed, but it sounded forced even to his own ears. Send a reply. Tell the human admiral that we do not negotiate with inferior species. But privately, Jektar was concerned. The human response was far beyond what Vorthic intelligence had predicted. His species had fought many wars, but they had never faced an entire civilization mobilized to rescue a handful of children in the ship's detention area. Katie Morrison sat with the other captured children in a small cell. Bobby was crying quietly, missing his parents. The other children were scared and homesick. But Katie was not afraid. She could feel the vibrations in the ship's hull as more and more vessels arrived outside. Each new arrival made her smile a little wider. "They're coming for us," she told. "The others. My daddy said humans always protect their children. Now you'll see what that means." A Vorthic guard overheard her words. "Your daddy is not here, little human. And your ships are weak. The Vorthic are the greatest warriors in the galaxy." Katie looked up at the large reptile with calm eyes. "That's what you think. But you've never seen humans fight for their children." Before, the guard laughed and walked away. But Katie's words stayed with him. There was something in the child's voice, a certainty that made him uncomfortable. Above the planet, the human fleet continued to grow. Admiral Stevens received reports from ship captains across the formation. Many were civilians who had never served in the military, but all were determined to help rescue the captured children. Captain Mike Davis of the cargo ship Lucky Star had loaded his vessel with emergency medical supplies. "We're not much good in a fight, Admiral, but we can take care of wounded." Captain Sarah Fox of the passenger liner New Hope had converted her ship into a mobile hospital. "We've got 300 medical staff aboard. Whatever you need." Similar reports came in from dozens of other vessels. The human fleet was not just a military force. It was an entire civilization working together for one purpose. Stevens felt a pride she had never experienced before. This was humanity at its best. "Admiral," her tactical officer called out. "Long-range sensors are detecting another fleet approaching. Unknown configuration." Stevens tensed. If the Vorthic reinforcements were arriving, the situation would become much more complicated. But the identification codes that came through were not Vorthic. They belonged to the Altarian Council, a peaceful species known for their medical knowledge. The Altarian fleet commander, a gentle being named Valandra, sent a message to Admiral Stevens. "We come to offer medical assistance for the human children. When they are recovered, no child should suffer for the mistakes of adults." Stevens was amazed. Word of the human mobilization was spreading to other species. Some were choosing to help. More messages arrived over the next hour. The Zephyrian Merchant Guild offered logistical support. The Kraxi Federation, ancient enemies of the Vorthic, sent intelligence about Vorthic ship weaknesses. Even some Vorthic vassal species began sending secret communications, offering help against their oppressors. The sight of humanity's united response was inspiring other races to stand up for what was right. But the most important message came from an unexpected source. Commander Jektar's own second-in-command, Sub-Commander Velkan, sent a coded transmission. "To the human fleet. I was present when the children were taken," Velkan's message said. "I have seen their courage. Your young ones show no fear. They believe in your strength completely. This has affected my thinking. The children are held in Detention Level 3, Section 7. The cell door code is 7742. I cannot do more without exposing myself." Admiral Stevens stared at the message. Even the Vorthic were being influenced by humanity's response. The enemy was developing cracks in their unity. The hour deadline approached. Stevens prepared her final transmission to the Vorthic command. "Ship, Commander Jektar, your time is up. Return the children now, or face the full force of human retribution. This is your last chance." Jektar's reply came quickly. "The Vorthic do not bow to threats from lesser species. If you want your young ones, come and take them." Stevens nodded to her communications officer. The message she had been dreading. To send went out to all human vessels. "All ships, this is Admiral Stevens. The enemy has refused our demands. The children remain in hostile hands. We will now take them back by force. Remember, the safety of those 6 children is our highest priority. Everything else is secondary." Across the massive human fleet, Weapons powered up, and ships moved into attack positions. But this was not a simple military operation. This was a rescue mission with the full force of human civilization behind it. Jake Morrison, watching from the surface, saw the fleet beginning to move. He thought about his daughter, trapped somewhere in that enemy ship. Katie believed her daddy would come for her. She was right. He was coming. They all were. The Vorthik had taken human children. Now they would learn what that decision would cost them. The battle for the future of human-alien relations was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The battle began with a precision that shocked the Vorthik. Admiral Stevens had divided her massive fleet into 3 groups. The largest group would engage the Vorthik battle fleet directly. The second group would disable the command ship's engines and weapons without destroying it. The third group, led by Lieutenant Commander Scott Williams, would board the command ship and rescue the children. Commander Jektar watched the human fleet move into position. He had expected them to attack like angry animals, charging forward without strategy. Instead, they moved like a single organism with one mind and one purpose. All ships fire at will, Jektar ordered. The Vorthik fleet opened fire with their powerful energy weapons. Several human ships were destroyed in the first exchange. But for every human ship that fell, 2 more took its place. Admiral Stevens coordinated the battle from her flagship. She could have stayed back and commanded from safety, but she chose to lead from the front. Her ship, the UHS Retribution, drew heavy fire as it closed with the enemy. "Admiral, we're taking heavy damage," her tactical officer reported. "Keep us in the fight," Stevens replied calmly. "Those children are counting on us." The human fleet fought with a ferocity that the galaxy had never seen before. Cargo ships rammed Vorthik vessels rather than retreat. Passenger liners used their shields to protect damaged warships. Even small personal craft flew directly at enemy guns to create openings for larger ships. The Vorthik had superior weapons and armor, but they could not match human determination. For every Vorthik ship, there were 15 human vessels willing to sacrifice themselves for the mission. Commander Jektar felt his confidence cracking as his fleet was systematically destroyed. The humans were not fighting like any species he had encountered before. They were fighting like parents protecting their young. "Sir, the humans have broken through our defensive line," his tactical officer reported. "Multiple ships are approaching our position." Jektar looked at his display. His fleet was scattered and burning. Most of his ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans had paid a heavy price, but they had achieved their goal. The massive human fleet was now surrounding his command ship. Lieutenant Commander Scott Williams led a team of 12 soldiers aboard a fast assault ship. Their mission was simple: get aboard the Vorthik command ship and rescue the children. The intelligence from the Vorthik defector had given them the location and door code for the detention area. "Remember, the children's safety is everything," Williams told his team as they prepared to board. "We go in fast, get the kids, and get out. Everything else is secondary." The assault team used cutting tools to breach the Vorthik ship's hull. They moved quickly through the corridors, following the intelligence they had received. Vorthik soldiers tried to stop them, but the humans fought with a desperation that overwhelmed their enemies. In the detention area, Katie Morrison heard explosions and weapon fire getting closer. She knew what it meant. "They're here," she told the other children. "The humans are here to take us home." Bobby wiped his tears away. "Really? My mom and dad came for me?" "All the moms and dads came," Katie said with a smile. "Just like I told you they would." The cell door exploded inward. Lieutenant Commander Williams stepped through the smoke with his weapon ready. When he saw the 6 human children huddled together but alive, he felt relief flood through him. "U.S. military," he announced. "We're here to take you home." Katie Morrison stood up and looked at the soldier. "Are my mom and dad okay?" "They're fine, sweetheart. They're waiting for you on the planet." As William's team prepared to evacuate the children, Amy Peterson's sacrifice became clear. The young teacher was found in the cell, badly wounded, but still alive. She had been protecting the children, even while injured. "I couldn't leave them," Amy whispered as medics worked on her wounds. They needed someone to keep them safe. Williams helped carry Amy as his team moved toward their extraction point. But as they reached the ship's hangar bay, they encountered heavy resistance. Vorthic soldiers were making a last stand to prevent the rescue. The firefight was intense. Williams realized they might not make it out with all the children safely. That was when Amy Peterson made her final sacrifice. Despite her wounds, the young teacher threw herself between the children and incoming enemy fire. The Vorthic weapons struck her instead of the kids she was protecting. "Get them out of here," Amy gasped as she fell. "Get them home to their families." Williams felt rage fill his heart as the brave teacher died in his arms. Amy Peterson had given everything to protect children who were not even her own. Her sacrifice would not be forgotten. The rescue team fought their way out of the Vorthic ship with the 6 children. As their assault craft raced back toward the human fleet, Katie Morrison looked out the window at the burning Vorthic command. "Vessel, Miss Peterson saved us," she said quietly. "Yes, she did," Williams replied. "She was very brave." "Will you tell everyone how brave she was?" "The whole galaxy will know," Williams promised. Aboard his crippled command ship, Jektar finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. His fleet was destroyed. His ship was dying around him. The human children had been rescued despite all his efforts. But more than that, he had awakened something in humanity that he had not expected. He had seen species fight for territory, for resources, for conquest. But he had never seen an entire civilization mobilized to protect 6 children. "Sir, the humans are demanding our surrender," his communications officer reported. Jektar looked around his ruined bridge. Most of his crew was dead or wounded. His ship's systems were failing. The battle was lost. But it was not just this battle that was lost. Jektar realized that his actions had changed something fundamental in the galaxy. The human response would be remembered. Other species would know that threatening human children brought consequences that no military force could withstand. "Open a channel to the human admiral," Jektar ordered. Admiral Stevens appeared on his screen, her uniform torn and bloodied from the battle. Behind her, the bridge of her flagship showed damage from the fierce fighting. "Commander Jektar," Stevens said coldly, "do you surrender?" Jektar studied the human admiral's face. He saw no mercy there, no forgiveness. Only the cold justice of a parent protecting her young. "I surrender," he said quietly. "But I must know. How many ships did you lose to save 6 children?" Stevens was quiet for a moment. 43 ships destroyed, 17 more badly damaged, over 2,000 casualties. Jektar was amazed. "You sacrificed so much for so few?" Stevens' expression did not change. "They were our children. We would have sacrificed everything." For the first time in his life, Jektar felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Not fear of death or defeat, but fear of what he had awakened in humanity. "Your species is not what we thought," he admitted. "No," Stevens agreed. "We're not, and now the galaxy will know it too." Jake Morrison stood in the medical bay of the UHS Retribution, holding his daughter Katie in his arms. She was thin and scared, but alive and unharmed. Lisa Morrison wept with relief as she examined the other rescued children. All 6 were physically okay, though they would need time to recover from their ordeal. Amy Peterson had protected them until the very end. "Daddy," Katie said softly. "Ugh." Bad lizards hurt Miss Peterson. She died saving us. Jake felt his throat tighten. I know, sweetheart. She was a hero. Will other bad guys try to hurt human children again? Jake looked out the window at the wreckage of the Vorthek fleet scattered across space. Word of this battle would spread to every corner of the galaxy. No, he said firmly. I don't think they will. The Battle of Haven's Rest was over. The children were safe. But the consequences of what had happened would ripple through the galaxy for generations to come. The Vorthek had learned, too late, that some lines should never be crossed. Touch a human child, and face the full wrath of humanity united. The galaxy would remember this lesson for a very long time. 6 months after the Battle of Haven's Rest, the galaxy was a very different place. The news of humanity's response to the kidnapping had spread to every known species. What had started as a simple rescue mission had become the most talked about. Event in galactic history. Katie Morrison sat in her new classroom on Haven's Rest. The colony had been rebuilt, stronger than before. The school now had Amy Peterson Memorial Hall, named after the teacher who had died protecting her students. Katie touched the small memorial plaque every morning before class started. Her father, Jake Morrison, was now Planetary Defense Commander for the entire sector. His warnings about protecting human children had become official policy for all human colonies. But more importantly, other species had begun asking for similar protection agreements. Daddy, why do all the alien ships ask permission before they land now? Katie asked one evening as they watched ships arrive at the colony's spaceport. Jake smiled. Because they've learned to respect human rules, sweetheart. They know we keep our promises. The Vorthek Empire had collapsed 3 months after the battle. Their defeat at Haven's Rest had encouraged their enslaved worlds to rebel. The once mighty empire was now scattered across dozens of independent systems, none of them powerful enough to threaten anyone. Commander Jektar was in a human prison, serving a life sentence for war crimes. His former second-in-command, Velkon, had been pardoned for helping rescue the children. He now worked as a translator, helping other Vorthek learn to live peacefully with their neighbors. Admiral Karen Stevens had been promoted to Fleet Commander of the entire Human Defense Force. Her actions at Haven's Rest had made her the most respected military leader in human space. But she said her greatest achievement was not winning the battle, but bringing the children home safely. The human fleet had grown enormously since the battle. Dozens of species now requested human protection for their colonies. The sight of 300 human ships arriving to rescue 6 children had impressed the galaxy more than any display of military might could have. Dr. Lisa Morrison ran the new medical center on Haven's Rest. It was 10 times larger than the old one and treated patients from across the galaxy. Many alien species specifically requested human doctors, believing that beings who would fight so hard for their children would care deeply for all patients. But the most important changes were in galactic law itself. The Galactic Trade Confederation had passed the Morrison Protocols, a new set of laws that gave special protection to the young of all species. Any threat against children was now considered a crime against the entire galaxy, punishable by immediate military intervention. The protocols were named after Katie Morrison, the 8-year-old girl whose capture had changed everything. Katie did not fully understand why her name was on laws that affected billions of beings, but she was proud that other children would be safer because of what had happened to her. At the ceremony where the Morrison Protocols were signed, representatives from over 200 species attended. Katie stood beside her parents as the Galactic Ambassador read the new laws. These protocols established that the protection of children is not just a family responsibility or a species responsibility, but a galactic responsibility, the ambassador announced. Any being who threatens the young of any species will face the combined response of all peaceful civilizations. Katie listened to the big words and important speeches But what made her happiest was seeing children from different species playing together in the gardens outside the ceremony hall. They were not afraid because they knew the grown-ups would protect them. The Altarian Council had established a new medical station near Haven's Rest, dedicated to treating traumatized children from across the galaxy. The peaceful Altarians had been deeply moved by Amy Peterson's sacrifice and wanted to honor her memory by helping other children heal from bad experiences. The Craxi Federation, the warrior species that had once been enemies of humans, now called humanity their greatest allies. Any species that fights so fiercely for their young has earned our eternal respect, declared Craxi War Chief Torvok. We offer our strength to defend human children as we would defend our own. Even former enemies were asking to make peace with humanity. The Syndicate of Free Traders, who had often clashed with human merchants, sent an ambassador requesting new trade agreements. We wish to do business with a species that values honor above profit, their message said. But perhaps the most meaningful response came from the children themselves. On schools across the galaxy, young beings learned about the Battle of Haven's Rest. They learned about Katie Morrison and her friends, who had been brave when captured. They learned about Amy Peterson, who had died protecting children who were not her own species. They learned about the thousands of humans who had dropped everything to rescue 6 small people they had never met. These lessons taught alien children that humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were protectors. And human children learned that their species would move heaven and earth to keep them safe. Lieutenant Commander Scott Williams, who had led the rescue mission aboard the Vorthic ship, was now in charge of training the new Child Protection Force. This special military unit was dedicated to responding to any threats against young beings throughout human space. The galaxy learned something important 6 months ago, Williams told his new recruits. They learned that humanity keeps its promises. When we warn someone not to threaten our children, we mean it. When we promise to protect the innocent, we follow through. That reputation is worth more than any weapon. In the detention facility where Commander Jiktar served his sentence, the former Vorthic leader spent his days writing. He was documenting everything he had learned about human nature during his brief, catastrophic encounter with their species. His writings would become required reading in military academies across the galaxy. The document was titled The Human. Warning: Why some lines should never be crossed. In it, Jektar wrote, I believed humans were weak because they cared for their young so deeply. I thought this caring made them soft, easy to defeat. I was wrong. Their care for children is not weakness. It is the source of their greatest strength. When you threaten what they love most, they become more dangerous than any warrior species. In the galaxy, back on Haven's Rest, life had returned to a peaceful routine. Children went to school, parents worked, and ships came and went carrying trade goods and visitors. But everyone in the colony knew that this peace was protected by something powerful. Katie Morrison was now 9 years old. She still remembered her time as a prisoner, but she was not afraid. She knew that what had happened to her had made the galaxy safer for all children. That knowledge helped her sleep peacefully at night. One evening, as Katie was doing her homework, she asked her mother a question that had been bothering her. Mom, why do people say I'm famous? I didn't do anything special. Lisa Morrison sat down beside her daughter. You did something very special, Katie. You believed. When you were captured, you never stopped believing that humans would come for you. That belief gave strength to everyone who fought to rescue you. But Miss Peterson was the real hero, Katie said. She saved us. Yes, she was. But heroes need something to fight for. You and the other children gave all those brave people a reason to be heroes. Katie thought about this. So being brave isn't just about fighting bad guys. Being brave is about believing in good things, even when bad things are happening," Lisa explained. "You believed your daddy would come for you. Miss Peterson believed. Children should be protected. All those people in the spaceships believed that rescuing you was worth any risk. That's what real courage looks like." As night fell over Haven's Rest, Katie looked out her bedroom window at the stars. Somewhere out there were millions of children from hundreds of different species, all sleeping safely because of what had happened here. The galaxy had learned a simple truth. Human children were protected by more than just their parents or their government or their military. They were protected by every human everywhere, and increasingly by other species who had learned to respect human values. Commander Jektar had dismissed this protection as weakness. He had learned too late that it was humanity's greatest strength. The warning had been given clearly and simply: touch a human child, and you won't survive the repercussions. The galaxy had seen that warning proven true. Now, no one would ever make Jektar's mistake again. Katie Morrison fell asleep knowing she was safe. Not just because her parents loved her, not just because her world was protected, but because an entire galaxy had learned that some things were sacred. Human children were under the protection of human civilization. And human civilization, the galaxy now knew, was not something to be challenged lightly. The warning had been given. The warning had been tested. The warning had been proven. The galaxy remembered, and the galaxy learned, and the galaxy was safer for all children because of it. Amy Peterson's sacrifice had not been in vain. The children she died protecting had become symbols of hope across the stars. And humanity had shown that when they made a promise to protect the innocent, they would keep that promise no matter the cost. This was the new galactic order. This was the lesson of Haven's Rest. Touch a human child and face the consequences. T.